Talk of Ukraine joining NATO in exchange for territorial concessions is unacceptable. Ukraine's Foreign Ministry.
Here's a summary of the article.
Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has rejected proposals to discuss Ukraine's membership of the North Atlantic Alliance in exchange for territorial concessions to Russia. Details: the Foreign Ministry spokesman said that any talk of Ukraine joining NATO in exchange for giving up part of Ukrainian territories was absolutely unacceptable. Quote, "We have always assumed that the alliance, like Ukraine, does not trade territories. The conscious or unconscious participation of NATO officials in shaping the narrative regarding the possibility of Ukraine's giving up its territories plays into the hands of Russia," he said. The Foreign Ministry spokesman noted that Ukraine is committed to further fruitful cooperation with the NATO Secretariat to achieve these goals. Stian Jensen, director of the private office of the NATO Secretary-General, had suggested that Ukraine could potentially join the alliance in exchange for territory. In particular, the NATO summit agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan for Ukraine's path to the alliance. At the same time, the allies indicated that they would invite Ukraine to join NATO when conditions are met.
This post received a score of 10,000, with an upvote ratio of 94%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Territorial disputes could keep Ukraine out of NATO altogether. I'd argue conceding that territory wouldn't make the case much better, as Ukraine would rightfully still want it returned, and appeasing Russia is a terrible precedent to set. We don't need another peace in our time. We need Russia to retreat and become a rational actor, however the latter won't happen under Putin.
No need to go that far into speculations. Hungary will veto Ukraine's joining and Russians will invade again in a few years.
Nuclear proliferation is going to happen now anyway.
I don't think nukes should be on the menu at all for Ukraine.
They never were. A quote by Zelensky was tortured into sounding that way. If you read everything with any functioning brain cells, it's clear that he is looking to NATO's Article 5 protections to replace the failed Budapest Memorandum.
I mean, he can't publicly talk about starting a nuclear weapons program right now. That would be horrible PR and potentially risk escalating things with Russia. If the war ends and there is no immediate path to join NATO or receive security guarantees from the USA, then a nuclear deterrent would be one of the few options available to Ukraine to ensure its continued sovereignty. As long as the USA continues to remain interested in ensuring the current world order stands, and protecting the sovereignty of our allies, Ukraine and our various allies around the world do not need nuclear weapons.
Does Ukraine still have knowledge from the USSR? Like, I know they got rid of their nukes, but if they still had some of the people who made them, couldn't they spin up a program fairly fast?
They absolutely could. They know how because they've built them before. A lot of them. And they have the nuclear infrastructure to do it already. The nuclear plants in Ukraine were designed to provide fuel for bombs. They'd need to enrich it, but for Ukraine that's not an issue either.
Headlines: man, they suck.
If the decision should be made by Ukraine alone, then why even suggest it, particularly when it's involved in a war over their territory being invaded? That solution is only interesting to me if the land ceded goes to NATO and not a nation. It would ensure Russia doesn't invade again if nothing else.
Ukraine have strongly expressed their wish to join NATO as soon as possible. Multiple times to ensure NATO's status as a defensive alliance is beyond approach, there are requirements for joining a sides everyone already in the pact agrees. Territorial disputes, no matter how idiotic, is a huge hindrance for accommodating Ukraine's wish of joining NATO, even after Russia stops their aggression regardless of reason. So I believe the most likely reason Stian could have said something of this effect to his counterparts in Kyiv as part of their communications about the obstacles of joining NATO is because it would resolve the territorial disputes. Not because he believed this to be an realistic solution, but to refocus the communication from "join now" to meeting the needed conditions for an invitation into the alliance.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.